There you go. Thank you. Just while everyone on my right-hand side hopefully gently shifts down, if that's okay. I'm kind of looking at them in a very nice way. It's nice at the moment. It won't be soon. Right then. Football business, TV, media, storytelling and industry influence. You shouldn't have favourites among your children, and I've not got favourites among my panels, but I know this is going to be, hopefully, an absolutely mad one. And I won't have to do too much talking because my panel, who've already been introduced to you, so I don't even have to do that anymore, are very much adept at telling the story themselves. I'm going to go from Pat back to me, back to MJ, via MJ, just to introduce this. So first of all, it is storytelling. So I kind of want to ask Pat just about storytelling. For those people here today who've got their own channels, who are starting, are thinking of starting, who have made tentative steps, what does storytelling mean to you?
Yeah, it's a good question, I think. It's really varied. I think I grew up in a time when football was still considered a game of opinions, and I've always enjoyed listening to different opinions within the game or around the game, and listening to different perspectives that different sets of eyes see the game through. So I think that authenticity in that has always been really key in terms of any kind of storytelling, and it's great to sit alongside the guys that are on the panel today who know a lot more about that stuff than I do, but we're trying to contribute a little bit to that in terms of giving a perspective, whether it's emotion-based or fact-based or whatever. There's always a different kind of story. So I think it's an enjoyable topic for most, just because there is just so much to cover.
I'm going to come to next door, so to Miles. Pat's mentioned, he's used the A word, authenticity, and that really is key, isn't it? Because obviously a lot of the time we sometimes see things which can be contrived, they can be kind of aiming at audiences or targeted. How do you get to be authentic, and how do people who are thinking, yeah, I want to do my first one, how do they make it authentic from the beginning?
Yeah, I think personalities are key. I think people just tend to think, we want to tell a story, let's just tell it. And I think, people forget that you have, you have an audience that you're trying to kind of keep the imagination of. And sometimes I think the audience that people are trying to keep the attention of can be a bit too broad. So they're just kind of, throwing things at the wall and not really creating content that really speaks to a particular audience. So personality for me, I think, is very key in that aspect. And just from what I do personally, I've always thought, if my content alienates a group, that's not going to be because I've said something they don't like or whatever. It's just because the style in which I do things, I think, resonates with a particular group. So I always try and encourage people in the space to focus on your target audience and tell the best stories you can, so that they can understand, really.
Yeah, and I mean, alienates probably isn't even the right word anyway, is it? Because it's probably just doesn't. It may not appeal to, which is absolutely fine, because we can't be all things to everyone. Blair, it's been great to meet you the last couple of days. I'm not going to ask you about Scotland just yet, but you did ask me to mention Scotland, so at some point he's gonna bore us with Scotland
Best
winning
story
the
ever.
World Cup. Here we go, 1978 again. I remember it last time. But Blair, you're sort of all over the YouTube accounts and doing lots of videos and everything. So to you, when you're doing story, and it feels like to me that it just happens, but it clearly. There must be some element of considered storytelling in it from you as well, what you're doing.
Yeah, every story, for it to be successful, needs to be unique. Everything needs to be relatable for the viewer, for me. If it's a story that someone can relate to in a certain way, then it's going to attract them a lot more. If it's unique, it's fresh, it's something that the viewer is going to be more interested in. So to me, when you're telling a story, it needs to be something that hasn't been told before, or you're telling it in a new way. So everything needs to be fresh, it needs to be on point, and it needs to bring the viewer in, almost.
As a former journalist as well, or as I suppose vaguely consider myself as a journalist, telling a story that's not been told before is really hard, because you just look at sport, you look at the narrative of life, all the good and bad things that go around. They've kind of happened before. So how do you even find a story that's never happened before?
You get a lot of games nowadays. You'll get a lot of games that they're the exact same, and you're watching the game and you're like, how can I make a video of this? But you need to know your stuff, and you need to know angles and certain ways that you can make a story out of it, because everything that you do needs to have a storyline, or it needs to have a certain angle. So when you're doing it, you need to be very improvisational, shall we say.
Yeah.
You need to be on the ball, and if something does happen, you need to take full advantage of it. So sometimes you will get games that are 0-0s, but then you need to look at it and go, how can I make something out of nothing here? So that's when the storytelling side of it comes into it, and that's how you do entertain.
And in the back of your mind, there's always something somewhere that's, I'm going to press this button and there'll be something.
Planning is huge in that regard. You need to do your research, you need to know what you're speaking about, and you need to have certain angles, because anything can happen any time in a game, so you need to be prepared for that.
Okay, MG, I'm going to take this now from a slightly different perspective, these sort of full-on content creators, and with your sort of role at Amazon. We were talking about before, about storytelling, but talking about sort of shaping fan loyalty, brand identity, global appeal, and sort of commercial behaviour. So how do you feel it can affect it to the point of commercial behaviour as well?
Yeah, I mean, storytelling is extremely powerful also in shaping the commercial behavior, right? For me, storytelling is about emotion, and it's not just the emotion in that moment, but it's about how fans live their lives, the community that they feel part of, the content that they want to see, and also the product that they want to buy. So it is super important for those that are catering to fans, to sport fans, to connect the different touch points, to connect the dots, leveraging storytelling. The way I see this is through 3 main points, and my colleagues here touched on them. One is personalization, right? The content needs to feel relevant, needs to feel authentic, needs to feel it's catered to the fan that is tuning in. The other one, it's the in the moment. So being there when the customer is celebrating a victory, is tuning in to listen to a story and providing them with the piece of merchandise, the jersey, etc. in that moment. But it's also about the continuity of the storytelling. So it's the in the moment, but it's also the continued connection through the different touch points. And I mean, at Amazon, we're very privileged in that sense, because you have the Prime Video where they're tuning in for streaming, but then you have the social media, and then you are able to connect the dot with the commerce as well and provide them with the merch. So that's how I see storytelling.
That's the journey that you're going to take in on.
That's the journey,
yeah, exactly. You're moving people through. Pat, going to come back to you. So obviously we've taken a quick look at storytelling. You know, it's pretty noticeable here that there aren't old school journalists from national newspapers sitting here now. You're still too young to remember, you know, printed media. But how did we get here? How did we get here? Where, I mean, and absolutely to their credit, you know, Miles and Blair are carving out great names for themselves. But the print media across Europe, across the world, has faded, and it's not even major TV channels. You know, people are doing it, as you are, doing it for themselves.
Yeah, it's changed. I started in the publishing industry a long time ago, so I've seen that change
So did we as well.
Yeah, from you started in journalism, so the guys actually have a background in.
We were just speaking about we started in journalism, so.
Yeah, so looking at that change now, I think there has to be a demand, right? It wouldn't be working otherwise. So I think that with the sheer amount of football there is now as well, you know, Amazon actually are my favourite, at the risk of sounding like I'm being, you know, based around nepotism.
There's a race to sign the deal with Amazon between these 3 people. We'll see who gets the contract signed with MG at the end.
No, but I think a lot of it is based on that demand, right? There's just so much football, and not everybody. And I watch youngsters in my own household now in terms of how they consume information, and it's changed so much. I remember growing up and my parents said, "You've got 30 seconds to make an impression." Well, now I think you've got about 1.7 seconds on a mobile device to make an impression. Are all the impressions the best ones? Maybe not. These guys are actually at the top of the tree for the stuff that I enjoy consuming, and I'm not just saying that either, because there's that authenticity. It isn't just shouting to make money. They're people that care about the game and they have a love of the game at the base of what they're doing, really, which makes a huge difference, I think. And you can again go back to that credibility and the rawness of what they were doing, whether it's pitch side, whether it's talking about it after the game or whatever. And people are too busy, I think, to sit there and read full match reports now, and there's a lot going on. So it's changed, but I think it's quite exciting. My kids think I'm old. They certainly think I'm older than you are, but I think it's enjoyable. I think the idea that it's created almost an entire new industry, or industries on the back of that is something we can all be happy about, I think.
Miles, I'm going to ask you as well, because you and Blair, I think this is probably pertinent to you both, but Miles, first, you're now in this position where you are actually producing content, you're making a name, and now the clubs are looking at this and going, we need our own channels, we need to kind of control again. What's the situation with clubs? How do you think they are? What should they be doing? Or if you were running a club, what could you be doing or should you be doing? And also, how do you view your relationship with various clubs?
I think clubs have noticed and understood a need for content and consistent, powerful content. And I think that's come from creators who tried their luck and, just threw things at the wall, whether it be on Instagram or whatever platform, and said, I'm just going to have a go at this, to the point where now the attention for the younger people is there on social media. That's where you get them, right? And those creators who have decided to take that chance are the ones who are reaping the benefits completely, to the point where you have these pseudo-celebrities where, you may not know who that person is, but, 300,000 kids.
To be every day.
So many kids around the world know who this person is, and that's been an interesting thing to see. And I think, to their detriment, clubs have been pretty slow with building their own, doing their own content. I think they've had enough time to do it. I don't sympathise with clubs who are struggling to make content, or now they're trying to find out, how should we do it, or why didn't we do it early enough? No. The platforms were there. You decided not to grab hold of it and understand that there are a new generation of people coming up who are solely getting their content from opening their phone and opening Instagram or TikTok. So now clubs are getting that and are working with creators a lot more. And I think if the clubs had started to do that first, there wouldn't be a need to merge with the creators. But now they have to, because the creators are the ones who run the space and ultimately have the most attention from the young people. So
Blair, I was just going to ask if that's okay as well. Firstly, are you going to be on Strictly Come Dancing anytime soon? And obviously, I'll be able to say I know who he is. And secondly, we talked about last night the relationship with clubs, and it's with yourself. It's a very delicate stage at the moment, isn't it? Whether you're kind of coming to do something with a club, and are they inviting you in, or will they soon be desperate for you to be there? So how's that relationship sort of swinging the pendulum going?
Yeah, so some clubs have obviously modernised, as Miles said. Some clubs aren't willing to modernise. So some clubs will be more than willing to get me in. They'll be happy. They know the exposure that I'll be giving them as a club and even as a league sometimes. And then you get certain clubs who are just like, no, we don't want anything to do it. It's all in-house. If you're not a friend of a friend, you're nothing to do with us. Now, what that does is, at the present, it might work okay, but for future terms, it sets you back as a club, because when you're not open, and when you're not open to new ideas and modernisation, as we spoke about, it's just going to leave you on that level when other clubs are expanding, other clubs are getting ahead of the game. And to be honest with you, you're starting to see it with certain clubs, from my experience in Scotland, where they're getting left behind, and you're starting to see the fans revolting. We'll not name the big two clubs in Scotland, but I think you can. I think you can take a big guess. Partick Thistle and Falkirk. So, and then from that, it's quite a difficult situation to pull that back, shall we say, because not only from the creators do you notice it, you start to notice it as fans, because the content that you're getting fed isn't on the same level of the smaller clubs, shall we say.
So should the clubs that are here today and the clubs at Soccerex actually be starting to talk to Miles and to yourself and say, look, let's have a conversation?
I'm more than willing to have a chat if we can work together. As Miles would probably agree, we're just here to try and help and try and promote, shall we say. It's for the benefit of everybody. That is the main part of it. Yeah.
MG, I wanted to. We've talked about channels and platforms, and we've kind of had that discussion, but not really said obviously what they are, because we kind of know what they are. But things like Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, they're kind of in there, and as Miles has said, they have. It's only been 15, 10 years or whatever, but they are around. They've been around for a bit. How have they changed things, and what's the future looking like with these platforms as well?
Well, first of all, adding to what they were saying, Twitch, I don't know how many know and use Twitch as a social media platform. It has 240 million streamers and has created a tons of celebrities that, to your point, are celebrities among the younger generation, and nobody knows them in like the 40-plus generation. At Amazon, we started working with creators, probably not early enough, to your point, but we have over 1 million creators, I think, that we work with today. The way we see them, the way I see them, is they're not just channels, right? Like, they're communities where there's trust, right? And so, to me, that's the biggest element of change versus the traditional media channels, which are like, you pay and you get your viewership. Here, it's really like a relationship that builds over time and that comes with a ton of trust and with a ton of engagement. So that's the biggest shift towards the traditional channels that I would point out.
That's that main element. We're going to move on to money. Pat, I'm going to talk money with you now. Yeah, no, I know, not that conversation again. But I think there's a lot of people that are in this space now. They're looking at monetization. Ironically, probably not the clubs necessarily. It's going to be the content creators, it's people like that. Where do you see the sponsorships? Where do you see the money coming in to make it worthwhile for people to say, right, I've got X number of eyeballs on what I'm doing. How much is it worth?
That's going to change all the time. That's been my area of expertise for years. But I think following on from the last point, the captive audience stuff is the thing we always seek, right? When you look at sponsors, and now more than ever, they need a captive audience, but also an audience that engages. So it's okay building a platform with tons of people participating from a watching perspective, but how much are they actually engaging with people producing the content, or who they're producing the content on behalf of? That's the key thing, and that's just going to continue to change. You mentioned Twitch and Kick and all these other things I don't know enough about. I'm an old school sponsorship specialist that converts an audience into revenue, and there'll always be, I think, some of that. But the doors that these guys are opening in terms of content production, I don't see slowing down anytime soon. So I think the numbers are going to go through the roof. I think once the clubs realise that, and Amazon, I have seen stuff they've done with creators recently, but the more clubs do it, the more clubs realise that the next generation of fans aren't coming through watching official fan channels, they're coming through watching these guys. So the sooner they realise that and tap into captive, engaged audiences that might be third-party owned, that's the key, because clubs have always historically wanted to go after groups of people they either own as a membership base or through partnerships or whatever, and what they need to do is embrace an almost new audience of people before they all go off to watch Baller League.
Miles, I mean, yeah, similar thing. You're making those posts, you're putting stuff out there, but you've got to eat at some point as well, haven't you? You've got to monetize things as well. So even the content creators, the people that are leading the way whilst they're making the content, how are you juggling these things and thinking, I want to get my worth?
Yeah, I think as a content creator, it's difficult. I can speak for people I know who have done things a certain way, and I can speak on the way I've done things. There are content creators who have built such a large following that they are monetizing every video that goes out, whether it's on YouTube, wherever.
But when you say monetizing, I mean, for some people here, what does that mean? Who's paying? Where's the money coming from?
If I talk about YouTube, then I'm not exactly sure what the rates are or how it works, but you're paid, I think, per a certain amount of views and things like that. So, but then a lot of these social media platforms, you have to get to a certain milestone before you can be paid. TikTok, I think you have to have 10,000 followers before you can even start making any money at all. So, people are seeing this as a legitimate career path, as opposed to what they're doing in for work. So there is that angle, and then there's someone like me who like myself and Blair, we studied we studied journalism, sorry. And I'm also a videographer by trade, so I personally took those skills and then went to a brand and sold it to a brand, for example, and so my company produces content for different brands. So there are those two avenues and two ways to go about it, but I wouldn't fault either one, to be honest.
No, so there's also that day job aspect, that there is something there that you've got backing up along with.
Yeah, there is, but increasingly I'm seeing a lot of people my age. I won't give away my age because I'm.
It's going to scare me anyway. Go on.
21.
Yeah, I'm over 30, and there are people who are in their 20s who are. Every week I hear someone has quit their job.
Yeah.
Because the content is just funding everything.
Good.
And that's amazing to hear. I wish I'd gone down that route, even though I've done it my way, but it's just so amazing to hear those stories.
That's the way it should be as well.
Yeah.
Blair, right, get ready. Here we go. So I want to talk about, we discussed sometimes when you're set up, you want to do this, you've got a program of events coming up, you're going to do certain sort of reels, certain stories, whatever else, and then circumstance and life takes over. And for you, one of those things was the Scottish national team actually doing quite well for a change. So just, and I'm going to say that because it's true, but talk us through.
So true.
Yeah. True. I will tell you later, don't worry. So tell us how that success, some of these things are expected, some are unexpected. Tell us how things actually can just change what your output is, what your focus is, and almost like your summer might now be a very different summer to what you had planned.
Yeah, so I've never been to a World Cup before, obviously, being Scottish. First time since 1998, we qualified in November. So it was an amazing experience. I mean, my dad was crying. Second time I've only ever seen him cry. First time was 10 minutes before when Denmark equalised. So that was interesting. And then we qualified for the World Cup, and I got a phone call the next day, and it was a guy who works with a company in Dublin, and he phoned me and he was like, "You don't believe the opportunities that are going to come your way," because I'm the biggest Scottish football content creator. So I cover the national team. I've worked with the national team before. So I'm like, okay, phone down, back to bed, shut up. Next couple of days, started to get emails through. And I was like, you actually might be right, mate. I was like, he's a good friend. So I was like passing it off. Over the last couple of months, it's the busiest I have ever been. And it's been incredible. But just honestly, it's been overwhelming because everybody is wanting on the Scottish story. Everybody's wanting a piece. So I'm going out to the World Cup. So everyone's just trying to get on board. So it's been an incredible experience, and the World Cup's not even started yet. I'm so excited for it, and I just can't wait. It's the moment of a lifetime because it's the first time since 1998, first time in my lifetime we'll see Scotland at the World Cup. And I think companies, they just know how emotional it's going to be. I covered the Euros the last time when Scotland was there, and honestly, you had fans from all over the world watching it just because of that emotional response, as you spoke about, that relatability. I cannot wait. It's going to be incredible.
Is this going to be the Content Creator World Cup so far? I mean, is this going to be the one where we see more and, turning up in the shores of Mexico and the US and Canada, more than mainstream media than, the Times and everything else? And it's going to be content creators that are going to dominate the coverage and how people actually consume it and actually, listen or watch it.
Yeah, 100%. I think people like the likes of Speed have changed the whole content scene. So they've really brought that energy to think, wow, look at the numbers these guys are getting, hundreds of millions. And you've got clubs, you've even got, for example, TV companies, etc., like the BBC, etc., in the UK, who are like, we can't even touch the sides of that. And it has really changed everything. You've got short-form creators who are getting out of their bed, going to a football pitch, doing a 30-second video, and they're getting 60 million views. I can upload a clip from one of my vlogs. Within 30 minutes, I can have 2 million views on it. That is the power of social media now. That is the reach that we have in social media that was never there before. It is so powerful, but it is only powerful if it's used in a positive manner, as you spoke about before, rather than going on and shouting and maybe not having a good influence on the younger generation. I think it's important that we use this power and we use it in a positive manner.
Yeah, because, I mean, obviously, I was going to say Miles and Pat, you're and Blair as well, you're responsible for the whole of social media. You're not, but in a sense, you post something out there if there's negativity, if there's things that are just unpleasant that and it's been mentioned here over the last couple of days. You know, you have a responsibility. I mean, the platform people do as well, but you have a responsibility for what is said in response to what you do and to try and temper that? Or do you think you put your content out there and it lands where it lands?
I think so long as you're not out to antagonize or offend, I think, you know, but then there are a lot of people who, you know, live on social media and just, they are looking for something to fight against. So I am not so much in the camp where it's like, you know, be careful what you say. I think people have a responsibility to respect creators, whether you like what they're saying or not. But it's funny, as creators, I feel like we tend to get a lot of abuse that we can see very easily and very quickly than maybe even some people who are on TV and are celebrities may or may not see. So that's an interesting side of it as well. You're just a guy in your bedroom who makes videos from his room, but you know, you amass 100,000 views per video, and then you just get so many hate comments from that. That's quite an interesting side of it as well.
Yeah, no, indeed. I'm going to come to you, MG. I've got one for you. Just to kind of finish off this with the content creators. Pat, obviously Blair's talked about Scotland. We'll mention it once more, but actually it's a specialism.
Yes.
There we go. And I do one more time. I'm sponsored for, it's like a million views. But as a specialism, and he's benefited from that specialism, obviously you're, you know, business, you're well known in the world of sport business, and kind of you do some fantastic interviews, sport business TV. Is there a benefit to being Mr. Arsenal, Mr. Liverpool, Mr. Business, or jack of all trades? I am a kind of global football cover. You know, our content creators should, if I was someone here, should I be thinking about being specific already, or should I be thinking let's be general?
Yeah, another good one. I think that it's going to depend on what your aims are. I think if your aims are maximising your commercial income, maybe align yourself with one team or one club is probably not the way to go. Although some particular channels have done incredibly well, and you know, me and Miles know them, certain people in the industry that have done incredibly well, you know, being attached to one club or one group. I think having more than one string to your bow is going to be important, unless you just want to have that one focus area. Again, I guess it depends on what you really enjoy doing and what the motives are. Miles is actually very good at that, because I've worked with him quite a lot. I didn't know what football team he supported until an hour ago, which is usually the first question that, you know, people ask each other. But he does a lot of work with, you know, different clubs, Chelsea and Arsenal legends and stuff like that. And I think it's really important if you want to have credibility across the industry. Again, it's that authenticity and honesty, which is really important. And to maximise your commercial impact, I think, you know, aligning yourself with one group probably wouldn't be the way to go.
No, indeed. MG, as the clock is ticking down, ironically, I start to look towards the future for many reasons, partly to get a drink and a flight, but also to look to the future of what we're talking about today. And the future of this particular area, and I suppose one of the key things, and it's a dreaded AI phrase as well, you know, where is AI going to be involved in what these guys are doing, in what businesses and what Amazon, and how you already, I'm sure you are, factoring it into the future?
So I think we can talk hours about this, right? I'm gonna try and narrow it down.
Yeah,
to
please.
a few angles, right?
Indeed.
So first of all, AI is already here, and we already know how it's shaping our search experiences. Before, we were looking for a football shoe, and now we're going to be very specific in our search, saying, I just started playing football again, I'm 40, I don't want to hurt myself, and I only play on Monday and Tuesdays. So you start by telling a story to your search engine, and that guides you towards the discovery. That's already here, and understanding how AI interprets the search, how AI interprets and organizes the results is going to be fundamental for brands and for clubs. And in the near future, what is going to happen is that our shopping journeys will be done by shopping agents. Like each of us will have their shopping agents, and so everyone that is connected to monetizing content to commerce will have to consider this and to not only fight for shelf space, but also for space within the, let's say, algorithm bandwidth. So I don't want to go too much into like the jargons of
don't use the word algorithm to these guys because it scares them as well. So look at their faces.
Yeah, and I'm sure for you guys,
cogs are turning.
There's already a ton of AI that you're considering as part of like personalization, creation of content, et cetera, et cetera.
We were just saying before it that AI actually is scaring us at the moment because we were old school. We started off with journalism, so it's already getting into AI. So it's like it's quite scary at the moment.
So maybe if I can add
indeed.
towards like the future, but maybe less scary, or I don't know. One thing that we're seeing also is these seamless journeys that are becoming obvious for the customer, right? And so in the world of content, there's no barrier anymore. What we're seeing is, as a streamer ourselves, it is super important to understand how the viewer is interacting in front of the screen. We've run a research last year. 94% of people that are streaming with their phone in their hands, right? So you're streaming, you're in front of the TV, you're watching the Champions League, 94% chances you're also holding your phone. So how those experiences, and probably if you think about it, you do that as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Every game. So there you go, 94%. So and the research went on to also ask the cohort on their willingness to shop in that moment, and they actually kind of contradicted our belief that they didn't want to be disturbed during that moment. 76% of them said that they would be inclined to shopping in that moment as long as it didn't interrupt their experience. And so that led to thinking about how the future will look like for shopping in that context. And we developed something that is called Shop the Game, or Shop the Show, which prompts you with a UX which is on your phone and gives you access to the product that you're seeing on the TV, but on your phone with a dedicated and customized experience. And probably AI is in the back of that, but yeah.
Wow.
No.
This is, so I'm sorry, just carry on with that.
No. So that is a little bit of how we're thinking about the future and how AI will...
Go Blair, go ahead.
Just to add to that, so YouTube actually already has that. I don't know if you know from like it's called like I think it's like product places or areas or restaurants. So if you're out doing a video, there's two boxes you can tick before you upload a video on YouTube, and it's like it is AI that they use, and it can tell you if the person's out where that restaurant is, or like say they pass a restaurant or what area they're in. So it can locate where you are, and you can literally click on it, and it can come up. So it's scary technology.
I mean, it is a case of sort of keeping abreast of all of what is developing. Blair, you said something last night which absolutely scared the pants off me yesterday, because we talked about what was kind of coming up and what people were doing, and then you happened to say, and obviously the younger generation, and that just. And I'm like, whoa, come on, Blair, you're 15, isn't it? But you know, seriously, what I know, seriously, it is what is going to be the demographic or the age even of content creators, and how young are they becoming, and obviously how do they see the world? Because I'm sure from the Amazon perspective of how an older person sees it to 20-year-olds, how are teens and even lower seeing a world and then putting content out?
Well, we are now in the generation of iPad kids. That's what the way we would call them in Scotland anyway. So nowadays, when you're young, you're getting an iPad or a phone put right in front of you, and you're instantly accessible to content creation. Barriers are becoming less and less, So the age range where you would maybe start content creation at 16, 18 when you started working is getting lesser and lesser. You're getting kids now on TikTok, although they should be 16. You're getting kids now coming onto TikTok as young as 5, 6, 7, uploading videos. Whether their parents are managing that, I don't know, but it's a totally different generation now where content is everything, as you said. You, before you go to bed, you're checking your phone, you're charging your phone, you're turning it off. You're waking up in the morning. Let's be honest here, in this room, what is the first thing that you look at in the morning? It's not opening the blinds, it's checking your phone. And that is the new generation now, where instantly, all day, every day, you're always on the look for something. That content may be a message, that content may be an email. So it's, to us, how can we take advantage of that? For me, it's YouTube notifications, it's TikTok notifications. Blair McNally has uploaded, Blair McNally has posted a new video. Would you like to watch this video? These are things that we can take advantage of as content creators. But yeah, content is everything now.
Content is king, as I think they always used to say, Pat, even in the good old days. Right then, we're getting close to penalties. Blair, I'm just going to ask you as well. Sorry, Blair. Miles, there we go. Blew it at the very end. There's going to be people here today that are going to be thinking, yeah, this is me, I can do this, I want to do this. Miles, what advice would you give to all age groups, people younger than Blair, I know you can't believe that, people older than Pat,
I mean,
you can't even believe that, but what's the best advice at the moment for the content creators to really hit the mark?
Oh, such an interesting question. I think if you want to get into the content game, unfortunately, you have to throw everything at it. Everything. I mean, sometimes even your own money. If this is what you want to do and you feel you can really make an impact in this space, whether it's you becoming a bit of a well-known personality or helping another brand grow, you're going to have to put everything into it. It's going to have to be what you want to do. Too often, brands will say, or people will say, what do I need to do? What content do I need to create? If you're asking that question, maybe you're not quite there yet, ready to do it. So it takes a lot more planning than I think people give us credit for, as opposed to just opening our phones and just talking at the camera.
But that's what makes it look so good, isn't it? Right? That's what people think. Yeah, it's so easy and that's when it's like training. It's like
so much goes into it.
Yeah, all that hard work. Right, we're just about there. I'm going to ask Pat to take the floor for the last question, if that's okay. MG's talked about sort of AI and that kind of future. I want you to get the crystal ball and have a look. It's a stupid question to ask, as we both know, given the media landscape has changed so much since we started at it when we were young. But I'm going to ask it anyway, because I'm stupid. 10 years' time, are these guys going to be ruling the world? Will they be the dinosaurs? Will there be something else? Will we be back to mainstream media? Or will it be Amazon controlling and we're going through them? Where is the landscape heading?
I have no idea.
Well, I know that, but give us an idea.
I think because it's moving so fast, I think, there's every opportunity or every possibility that there's going to be somebody 10 years younger than Blair doing this in 5 years' time. But there are also huge opportunities for broadcasters to step to the front as well and really take ownership of an entire industry. I think embracing AI in certain ways is great from a planning logistics perspective. I think people are already starting to see through the authenticity of some of the AI stuff from a design standpoint now, because people are just using it to throw out as much content as possible. And I think that the one thing that we will do is kind of do a almost full circle from content creation started, then it became just throw as much stuff out as possible and you'll be famous and get rich, and then you'll come back to the authenticity of producing good quality stuff by people that care about the industry that they're contributing to. And I think that's key. That's the only thing that's going to retain fan bases, right? It's not going to, we can come and watch Miles's video for 5 minutes and we like it or we don't, we come back or we don't. But I think the authenticity side will keep people there as opposed to bouncing around. But I think the possibilities are absolutely endless because of the fact somebody now can pick up a phone and create a brand, which is what these guys are doing now even if they've invested their own money, a fraction of what maybe a broadcaster might do when they're looking to launch a new platform.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Pat. Unless there was something finally to add.
No, I was
Go.
just going to say, like, ultimately what won't change is that the customer will decide.
The customer is there's the best Amazon quote at the end. And to be fair, that's the person who's looking at the posts, looking at everything else from all of these guys. Right, thank you very much to Pat, who has obviously been a legend as always. To Miles, I'm going to find out the team you support afterwards, and then we can have a go at you. Blair, Scotland got to the finals this year, didn't they, for the World Cup?
Would never know.
We would never know. We wouldn't ever know. And MG, absolutely fascinating from the insight from Amazon as well. Thank you to that. Can we have a round of applause, please? A substantial one for our guests for this panel. Thank you very much. My name is Darren Isted. Thank you.